Welcome to this FoxNews.com exclusive from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio. Our guest today, a very special guest, a man who was cool with the Tea Party before the Tea Party was cool. Colonel Allen West, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Juan.
So let me just tell the audience that Allen West was a congressman and, of course, now runs the Center
for Policy Analysis in Dallas, Texas. I'm the executive director there.
So you've gone from Florida to Dallas, but
yeah.
What has remained true is that you are one of the best known, most prominent Republican African Americans in the nation.
You're very kind one.
No, I think that's a fact. I don't think that's in controversy at all. So here we are at a Republican convention where you have Donald Trump on the stage as the presumptive nominee, and the numbers, when you look at the poll numbers, are so small with minority voters.
Absolutely.
Allen West, what are you saying in terms of outreach?
Well, I hate the word outreach, and I said that to Reince Priebus. I think the outreach comes to mean that you show up in the Black History Month or Hispanic History Month, you have collard greens, fried chicken, and they never see you again until 60 days before the election. What needs to happen is policy inclusiveness. I always tell people, I was born and raised in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, same neighborhood that gave us Martin Luther King Jr. My parents were registered Democrats. My parents campaigned and voted for John Lewis. He was my representative. But when you think about the philosophy, the principles by which my parents raised me, they're definitely more so conservative principles. It was about individual responsibility. It was about education. It was about family. It was about faith. And, having a father that served in World War II and an older brother that served in Vietnam, it was about service to the country. And when I was a young kid and knowing that they chose where I would go to school, small black Catholic school, Our Lady of Lourdes, right across the street from Ebenezer Baptist Church. So every single day of my life, I walked past Dr. King's final resting spot. I walked down Auburn Avenue and I saw small businesses owned by blacks. I saw doctors' offices, lawyers' offices. I went and learned how to box and swim and play basketball at the Butler Street YMCA, the historical place. And that's what is missing. People are not going back into the inner city communities, being black or Hispanic, and talking about those principles. Not so much about party, but about principles. And I think that if this Republican Party is that policy inclusiveness to talk about how do we restore the family? How do we help people to make education choices for their kids? How do we have small business entrepreneurship to grow? I always talk about Jack Kemp and Art Laffer, urban economic empowerment.
So how does this relate to the Trump candidacy?
Well, the Trump candidacy has to focus on that because when you look at that post-mortem autopsy report the GOP put out after the 2012 election, they talked about more policy inclusiveness in the minority communities. But I'll be very honest, Juan. You look at the ticket today, you have two white guys again. And so some people will say that's no big deal. But you and I know the reality and the truth. Image is important. Your message can be outstanding, but the image that you portray allows the Democrats to say, see, there you go again. And that's what I think they're failing to understand. Now, you can recover from that, but it means you've got to go into these communities and you've got to get on the ground. Not the 30,000 people arena attendee events, but you got to get on the ground. You got to walk down Auburn Avenue. You got to go into communities here in Cleveland.
Well, on this point, though, Donald Trump turned down an invitation to speak at the NAACP this week, having their convention in Cincinnati. Did you think that was an error?
I do. I think that was an unforced error, like you have in baseball or tennis. Because why not go in and challenge the NAACP and say, look at the unemployment rate. Look at the breakdown of the family. Look at, education. These are the type of things I want to do. Let's talk about, new black small business startups. I want to increase that. I want to increase, black banks. Citizens Trust Bank in Atlanta, Georgia was a black-owned bank. I want to see more black-owned banks in the United States of America so that they can be lending. And I want to make sure that they have the right regulatory environment to be able to do that.
Well, so why is it that you think that this general message is not resonating in the black community, but specifically Donald Trump? And I wonder why, for someone in your position, widely recognized and respected, you have decided to endorse Trump.
Well, I have not officially endorsed it because I can with a 501c3. I'm going to vote for him because the alternative for me is not acceptable. I've been in a firefight. I've been in combat zones in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I cannot support someone that abandoned Americans in a firefight and then came about and lied about it. I just can't do that because I have friends still in the military. I have relatives still in the military. But when I walk around here in Cleveland And I have people that are here working this event, and they come up to me and they know exactly who I am.
Right.
And they tell me, hey, you know, we're paying attention to the message. You know, you can't tell me that this message cannot get to people. It's just the desire to do it and to take the time and the effort. And I think too often the Republican Party has sat back and said, the numbers don't work out, so we're not going to do it. When was the last time you heard anyone say that if it was not for Senator Everett Dirksen and the Senate Republicans, that civil rights legislation might not have passed?
Absolutely
because
true.
Robert Byrd Sr. and Al Gore, Robert Byrd and Al Gore Sr., they were not for it.
Right.
Yeah.
They were Dixiecrats.
They were Dixiecrats. But you know what? They're not talking about that history. They're not talking about that message. And they have allowed the Democrat Party to have complete control of our inner city communities.
Let's go back for a moment to what you were talking about with regard to your military experience. You've heard people who are veterans complain about Trump, his statement about Senator McCain as not being a hero. He prefers winners, not people who get captured. But also the controversy about whether or not he had truly raised money for a veterans charity and the slowness in delivering that money. This did not cause Alan West to have some reservations about the Trump
It caused me some consternation because, you know, I'll be very honest, and I don't have any problem saying this. My older brother served in Vietnam. He was wounded at Quai Son as a Marine infantryman. I know that Donald Trump had 3 deferments. So I don't think you should be talking about people that were over there when you were not there. And if I had the chance to tell him eyeball to eyeball, I'd say the exact same thing. But I would believe that I could get an opportunity to sit down with Donald Trump and talk about national security policy and talk about better care of our veterans and talk about how we restore a decimated military, probably more so than I believe Hillary Clinton would sit down with me. So that's the only leverage. But is Trump a perfect guy? Absolutely not. I mean, I can talk about many different policy points where I find disagreement with. But I think that, you know, when I look at the two, unfortunately, out of a country of 300 million, this is what we have put forward. You know, it's the devil in the deep blue sea, as my daddy used to say down south.
Now, when you look at some of the political issues that attach, I come back to the work that you're doing now for the National Center for
Policy
Analysis. You look at what's going on in Turkey. You recently had a piece talking about the depth of that controversy.
Oh, it's huge.
All right, so we come now to the devil in the deep blue sea, as described by my friend Alan West here. Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. Who do you trust to handle what is a very, not only dynamic, but explosive situation in Turkey?
This is what I would hope to believe, that we can get the right type of advisors around Donald Trump to get him to understand the complexities of that issue.
Now, hold on.
I'm
you
just
see what you just did? You didn't say you trusted Trump. You said you can trust that you will get the right kind of advisors.
Access. It's the access. You know, when I look at the record the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had as the Secretary of State, you know, I don't know if she will make the right decision when it comes to Turkey. We should have seen a long time out that, you know, Recep Erdogan was an Islamist.
The president. Yeah,
the president of Turkey. And he is really a very good, stealthy supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood. He has been supporting ISIS all along because he wanted to see Bashar al-Assad taken out of power. Now, of course, that nasty little Frankenstein monster has turned against him. So I think that, you know, when I look at what has happened with the debacle in Libya, which has now become a terrorist sanctuary, the Russian reset button, which now Vladimir Putin has taken complete advantage of that, I see some real chinks in the armor of Secretary of State Clinton. But again, I don't know if I could have the access to her to be able to say, you know, this is the direction.
But how can you compare this experience, which is what I'm sure we're going to hear at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia,
of course they're going to talk
her
about
experience versus Trump's experience in foreign affairs?
Well, I mean, her experience, you know, really comes down to a lot of frequent flyer miles. But there is no doubt the American people have rejected a political elite class.
Right.
And they have said, here's somebody that he has never had the experience in the political realm. He has never had the experience in the foreign policy realm. But we are willing to give this guy a shot because we've been let down by Washington, D.C., both sides of the aisle. And I think that's the real story, is the rejection, the abject, complete rejection of a political elite class that have led the people on our side, almost on the Democrat side with Bernie Sanders, to say that this is the direction that we want to go in, and we're willing to try this guy. Now,
one last thing. Who did you support in the Republican primaries?
Oh, I'll be very honest, and you can go back to a financial record. I thought Carly Fiorina would have been an outstanding leader. When I looked at how she was able to understand and articulate the issues, and she answered questions during the debate. She didn't obfuscate. She didn't dance around it. I thought that she would have been ideal for this position.
But she's not here at the convention.
She's not here at the convention.
So she's not, I think she still harbors some resentment about the way Trump treated her during the campaign.
You know, there's a part of me that I have to tell you, in the military we say it's time to put on your big boy pants and think about something that's bigger than yourself. Egos are an important, you see them in
not
politics.
TV. Not in TV or politics. Never, never, never.
Yeah, but you know, people have to start looking at the big picture. This is about a country. This is about the country we pass on to your grandchildren, to my daughters, and that's what I stay focused on.
Colonel Allen West, now former congressman, now with the National Center for
Policy Analysis
in Dallas, Texas. Colonel West, thank you so much for joining us here on FoxNews.com video, live streaming from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio.